Hey everyone, it's Heather Marie Speaks, and I'm here on location at Queen Bee & Company. I'm on the radio at 106.1 FM here at 6 a.m. in the morning. You're listening to me as a pre-recorded station, but I'm excited to be here today with Michelle Lynam, who is a doctor, an anesthesiologist, and she is Dr. United States of America. So I'm super excited to have her as my guest because I've been wanting to have somebody in the medical field to talk to about the pandemic, what's going on with COVID. She's also been very involved in the fashion industry. And as you guys know, I am a fashion-infused mental health advocate and survivor of domestic violence. So I love to be able to bring people in that have that little bit of fashion-infused. It always helps to make the conversation about mental health a little bit easier. But as I said, we are here on location at Queen Bee & Company, so I have prepared tea for us. Michelle has not had tea here yet. My specialty teas from Fortnum and Mason are shipped in from London. So Queen Bee & Company is a destination tea room to be able to come to in Richmond, Virginia. If you're in the area, give us a call at 804-215-4512 to be able to come and make a reservation for high tea or afternoon tea. But Michelle gets to have it for the first time here today. So I'm going to pour us a cup of tea and we're going to have a little bit of conversation. So I'm excited to be able to have you here. Michelle, tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how we met.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here.
Of
Queen Bee
course.
Company is just absolutely gorgeous. I feel very regal.
Aw, thank you.
The colors and the richness are just definitely gorgeous.
Thank you.
So my name is Michelle Lynam, MD. I'm a Richmond native, born and raised here, and I went to J.R. Tucker High School. I went off to Boston to MIT for college, and then where I did some gene research, so I'm a bit of a nerd. And then came back here for medical school at, we called it MCV back then, or VCU. And then I continued on with my residency. So it's 4 years for medical school and 4 years for residency.
That's a lot of education.
That's a lot of school.
Yeah.
And my husband even had like double the schooling I've had. But I am an anesthesiologist, so that means that I help patients have procedures and surgeries with minimal anxiety and pain. Mm-hmm. So it's a very hands-on, fulfilling job, and I love it. I love doing labor and delivery and getting to see those little babies come in the world. Just makes me cry every time, especially if the dad starts to cry. And so the whole first half of my life, I was just studying. Part of it, I'm a daughter of immigrants, so we can talk about that later. Mm-hmm. But there's this thing where you're like, gosh, my parents sacrificed everything, so I'm going to do everything I can to take advantage, really appreciate what they did for me.
Yeah.
And so I just was studying. I kind of missed out on all that high school and the socializing. I was like, I'm studying, I'm working, so straight A's, valedictorian.
Beauty and brains, guys.
Well, so yeah, I was just, I loved fashion back then, but didn't have time for it.
Yeah.
Then when I came back to Richmond, I was actually scouted on the streets for modeling, and I was like, I'm in med school. Are you crazy? I don't have time to sleep.
Yeah.
And then when I was in residency, I got scouted again and again. I was like, I'm a resident.
Well, you are a tall blonde, Michelle. I'm sure that
you.
people did not expect a tall blonde to be a doctor because oftentimes, well, not that doctors aren't attractive people, but you stand out as a model-esque type of physique anyway. So I'm sure that they were like, yes, we need you.
Oh, you're sweet. You're sweet. So my husband and I got married. I was 27. He's like my Prince Charming. He's like tall and handsome, and he's the smartest person I know and the kindest person I know. He's a dual board certified plastic surgeon with fellowship training. He's here in town.
Yeah, he's got a plastic surgery office as well. What is his company? You can give him a shout out on here.
So it's Richmond Surgical Arts. He's over at Stony Point. He also has RVA Health and Wellness.
Okay.
And which is all keeping Mother Nature at bay for me. I'm 47 and I feel better than I did in my 30s.
Oh, good.
He's got a skincare practice called Skin Rejuvenation Center.
Okay.
And so he's got a team. They got all the toys.
That's great.
So I was very lucky. We got married. I've known him for 25 years. We met during our training at MCV VCU.
Okay.
And so my 30s were just having babies, and I had my teens, my early 30s, and then at 35 I wanted to have one more baby, and it just wasn't going to happen. And I actually wound up having 5 miscarriages, which really shaped who I am as a person. Right in a row. Had to do IVF treatments, so if anybody ever wants to reach out and talk to me about that too, I can talk about that. That's a whole journey. But so finally at 40, I had Valentina, and she's 6 now.
She's adorable.
But with my daughters, the teens, when they were 11 and 12, they got scouted by Kim Alley. And like next thing you know, we were up in New York meeting IMG and all the big agencies. And then back home, they started getting their toes wet with some fashion shows, because you have to be a certain age up in New York to walk. So they got to walk here locally. And
now, how did your daughters, and it's is it Georgiana? Am I saying?
Mirabella and Gabriella.
Gabriella,
Yes.
that's right. I knew there was a G. Were they in RVA Fashion Week when they got scouted by Kim?
No, Mirabella was in 6th grade.
Okay.
And she started doing cotillion.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, come here. So I pulled the hair out of her face.
Yeah.
Put a little bit of makeup on. And what every mom does, post it on Facebook.
Right.
And people were like, wow. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know, people say complimentary things about your children. But people are like, no, really, you need to
your
do
daughters
something
are gorgeous.
with her.
Yeah, they are.
And so 2 dear mutual friends of mine are friends with Kim Alley, and we had a meeting, and I was, Mirabella's very introverted. I was like, this is what you say. And Kim Alley just looked at her and said, oh my gosh. So it just kind of went from there.
And so shout out to Kim Alley out there. I've met her
Alley
as well, and she's done modeling. That's how she started her modeling group.
She's
right?
modeled for all the big agencies, and now she is an amazing, amazing mother agent and just a really good person. She's taken such good care of my girls.
That's great.
Hasn't taken anything from us. It's all just been a lot of love, and now I consider her one of my best friends.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
But yeah, their first fashion show was here, and what's funny is, so I'm backstage, and also with the girls' fashion shoots. I mean, I shopped at Target for my clothes, honestly. And,
that's okay. Nothing against Target.
So they start doing these shoots, and I'm like, oh, those are some really nice pants. So I'm starting to like appreciate a little bit more of the luxury stuff from them. And then I'm watching them get their makeup done. I'm like, wow, I don't know how to do makeup. And I like to face paint, but makeup, I had no idea what I was doing. And then 4 years ago, their first fashion show, and I'm backstage with them because they're, 12.
Yeah.
And every time I stood up, someone would gasp in horror looking at me like, oh, you haven't had your makeup done. I'm like, because I'm not one of the models. But enough people said it to me back then. I was like, next year I'm gonna try out.
Yeah.
And just the energy of a show and the buzz, and I fell in love with it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So they would do my makeup. I'm like, tell me what you're using, because I need that at home.
Well, it just goes to show it all, we learn as we go. I actually was a makeup artist in Chicago when I did wedding planning, and that's how I got into the wedding industry. I did makeup artistry for Versace. And so it was fun to be able to do it, but it was just kind of like, I guess when you're creative, like you said, you do the painting stuff, when you're using your hands and using your gifts and talents, sometimes it morphs into something else that you just didn't expect. And learning a new skill, a new trade, you may love it and you may be like, I don't really like it so much. Right. But I've done makeup on people, and then I've also had makeup artists do makeup on me. And it allows me to see, what I like and what doesn't work, and what's like, oh, well, what is that? Tell me what you did. Show me how you did it. And same thing with hairdressers. They style your hair. You just pay attention and you learn. You try. You learn. You try. You see what you like and see what you don't like. But
I had makeup in my drawer for middle school. I'm not kidding you. My little, drugstore Walgreens, and then Gabriella, she's 15 now. She's my little YouTube, and so I go up in her room and I'm like, can I borrow this? And it may or may not get back into her drawer.
Well, what's really funny is through this pandemic, a lot of people had started to stop doing their makeup, stop doing their hair, because they were doing a lot of things before, even virtually, just on the phone, or they were working remotely from home. Things changed a lot. And so I was out there trying to encourage people, still get dressed up, still make yourself feel good, do things that are going to help your self-care so that you feel good on the inside and the outside. But a lot of people were struggling, and I know that I have friends in the medical industry that were nurses, and they were overwhelmed with stuff that was going on. Tell me a little bit about what you experienced in the hospital and as a doctor in the medical field. What was going on? Like, how did you cope with what was happening? How did you find out the actual facts, and how are you going forward with everything now?
Well, it's amazing. It's been a year since this has been declared a pandemic, and so much has happened. And now I'm vaccinated, so I feel so much better. And Pfizer just come out saying that we knew that I couldn't get very sick being vaccinated, but I was always worried that it could get an asymptomatic transmission, make you sick, make someone else sick.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that data originally. J&J started coming out with some of that data. Israel has vaccinated a lot of people compared to any other country, and so they're getting data. I don't know how Pfizer got this data, but they came out with a press release a couple days ago where they said that my risk of getting an asymptomatic infection is like 90, maybe it was 94% reduced. It's really high. Amazing. We've not had a vaccine just hit it out of the ballpark like this ever. So
wow,
that's really exciting. But a year ago, talk about mental health. I was just terrified. It was just so scary.
Yeah.
So much of the unknown is just really terrifying. Where is it being spread by fomites? We know that's a little bit less of a concern.
Yeah.
Is it droplet? Is it respiratory? And then going to work, there was a national shortage of N95 masks.
Yeah.
And,
I remember that.
Even up until a few months ago, we were dropping our N95s. We're supposed to have one for each patient, a clean mask.
Mm-hmm.
And up until a few months ago, we were recycling our masks. So you would pick up a mask and someone had already used it. And sometimes it smelled like cigarette smoke, didn't smell that fresh.
Oh my goodness.
So the fact that I have a fresh mask every day is wonderful. I can I have face shields, access to face shields. We've got PAPRs, which are the big moon suits, readily available.
Yeah.
And we know that fomites aren't as much of a concern. We know that we're edging our way towards herd immunity, which is great.
Yeah.
I think the biggest shock to me was early on in the pandemic. I was watching the news, national news, and my med school classmate's name came up, Dr. Warner Breen. And I just remember going, oh! And she was just an amazing, wonderful person, happy, never had any mental illness her entire life. And she was just a go-getter. She was working at several emergency rooms in New York. And I've heard some of the things that she witnessed were just horrendous.
Yeah.
People passing away before they could get off the ambulance, people passing away in the hallways, a nurse who came back because she was about to retire but needed help, falling ill and not surviving, residents falling. So it was just horrendous for her. And she was the director of this one particular emergency room.
Yeah.
So she's struggling, she winds up getting sick, and as soon as she can get up out of her chair, she goes back to work. And there's a combination of the horrors that you've seen, but we're also getting
trauma.
more, PTSD. We're getting more and more studies coming out where people who are survivors.
So many people are struggling with their mental health, and sometimes they won't show signs of it. And I think it was something that her family didn't even see coming. Am I correct with that?
Correct.
They had no idea.
Everything I'm talking about you can find online.
Yeah.
Families have done many interviews, and I know from being in medical school for 4 years, she always had a smile. I know right where she was sitting, and she just ear to ear had this beaming smile. And she was such a giving person. She gave everything to her job. She was very active, was into all these extracurricular activities, and just loved life. And a combination of what she saw, and potentially the COVID damaged her organs and maybe caused some primary changes to her brain.
Well, and our brains are such amazing things too, because there's a lot of times that people don't even understand or realize that addictions is a brain disease. Addiction isn't just something that someone can cut off and stop doing by themselves. Alcoholism, drug addicts, shopping, there's all kinds of different addictions that people will go to, even sugar. And if they have this constant thing where their brain is going towards it, they need to get the help to be able to get recovery from it. Same thing with the COVID patients. If there is something that they've gone through that's traumatic, and I think everyone, especially now that we've gone through a year of this pandemic, everyone has experienced some sort of trauma now at this point. They've seen something, whether it's on the news, whether it's in their family, whether it's out here. I mean, sometimes people can feel trauma just from seeing everybody wearing a mask. It's very different. So the unknown, the unusual, the non-normal things that people have had to adjust and adapt to are traumatic sometimes. And so it's important for us to continue to talk about mental health awareness, continue to encourage people to talk about it so that it's not such a stigma that people think they can't say anything about how they're feeling, because our feelings will fool us, but our feelings will also take us on a trail that sometimes we need help to get back onto the straight and narrow, and to be in a mindset mentally that sometimes you can't pull yourself out of. There are other people out there that can help you do that. So it's important to reach out and talk to people and ask for help if you need it.
Right. So my point being, if anyone has survived even a mild or definitely a severe case of COVID, look out for them as a loved one. And if you see any changes that are struggling, especially if you don't live with them, reach out to them and talk to them. And I always say, if anybody wants to talk to me, I'm happy to lend an ear. I mean, psychiatry is not my specialty. But it's a shame that there's such a stigma about mental illness. If someone was a diabetic,
I know,
and they don't take their medicine and they have a hypoglycemic episode and pass out, nobody says, that they should be shamed.
That's the thing, is the shame that people either carry or the shame that's put on them from someone else. Even with suicide, people, shame people that have suicidal thoughts because they're like, well, you should know better. People are struggling. Like mentally, if someone struggles with suicidal thoughts, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go through with it, but they're struggling with some sort of mental health state that's not quite right. And sometimes we can be self-aware and know it, and other times you can be so wrapped up. I know I've had clients and friends that have been struggling with some sort of state of mind that they don't even know how they got there, but they're stuck. Okay. And thankfully they've reached out and asked for help, or asked if I had any referrals, or asked if they could just come talk to me. And so it's been something that I've felt blessed, and even in this tea room, for people to be able to come and just have that place to just have some self-care, to breathe, to pause for a moment and just be still and just think, where am I at right now? Like, where is my mind? How am I feeling? Am I okay? Is it something I can do to change it? If not, do I need to ask for help? And oftentimes when you're struggling, you need to reach out to a friend, or you need to reach out to...
that's the hardest part.
It is.
That step.
But you know what? There's so much strength in it to be able to, it's not a weakness to ask for help. It's a strength to ask for help and to be able to overcome what you're going through, because your story will help someone else. So I love that you're using your platform to be able to talk about the different things that are going on during the pandemic, to educate people on the masks, to also talk about mental health, and to be able to use that as, a bigger platform than maybe you had just as a doctor. So I know that we talked about it a little bit before, because I'd never done a pageant before, you'd never done a pageant before, and to be a pageant person, it's been a little twisted sometimes from people's perspective of what pageantry really is, but truly it's been transitioned and transformed into a community platform to be able to bring people awareness, bring people education on whatever topic it is that you're passionate about. Yours clearly is in the medical field and mental health. So I love that you're able to do that. It's a wonderful thing to be able to give back to the community, and definitely wanted to spotlight that and get someone that was educated in the medical field, because for crying out loud, 8 years of education, that's great. And experience of, how long have you been in the anesthesiology practice?
I started my residency in '99, so.
That's great. So it's quite a bit of time.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Never seen anything like this, though.
Yeah. I'm sure it's very different.
So this is the only pandemic of my lifetime and my daughter's lifetime.
Yeah, I definitely hope for that too. A little bit about your family history, because you guys are from the Czech Republic, and your parents, you shared a little bit with me, fled from there to come over here to give you guys a better life.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that so that people can kind of know that history.
Yeah, definitely so much of my story comes from the sacrifice that my parents did for us. My dad was a brilliant MD, PhD in Prague, great reputation, did lots of research, and he met my mom at the hospital, and her family had been outspoken about the communist government coming in, and they were very much persecuted. So there was an opportunity for them to go work in Africa with the World Health Organization. At the time, in the 60s, there had been a political uprising in Tunisia, and all the highly educated people fled. So my mom, she's the adventurer. She would love to travel all her life, and so she encouraged my dad to take this job in Africa. And so he learned all about tropical diseases. They were kind of the town doctor, and my mom used her lab tech skills to help take care of patients as well. And they were sort of like the celebrities. They were just, there's the doctor, and patients would bring them dinner. But in Africa, when you bring someone dinner, it might be a live animal, because refrigeration maybe back then wasn't that readily available. So suddenly they had 30 rabbits multiplying in their back. So they bring them live animals. So here's a rabbit, and before you know it, they had 30. I've seen pictures of these rabbits running around in their fenced-in backyard. And one time they got a really big treat, a gazelle. I'm sure they're delicious, but my parents were not going to eat it. So there's this gazelle running around being chased by these 30 rabbits. One time my mom saw...
and this was in Africa that they were...
in Tunisia, right?
Okay.
There was some... it was through the World Health Organization. The Tunisian and Czech government were sort of friendly at the time.
Yeah.
So that's how that all happened, because all the doctors had left.
Yeah.
So he learned about tropical diseases and was treating patients, and my mom was his lab tech. So
that's amazing.
She even saw a a donkey that had just had a baby, and she said, "Oh, that's so cute." So before you know it, that was their pet in the house.
Can you imagine nowadays if someone showed up to your house with a live animal? I mean, I live on a mini farm, so it wouldn't be as unusual, but going to a normal neighborhood and showing up with a gazelle.
Right.
Thank you for what you've
just
done.
Walking in on a leash. I don't know. But this donkey, like she just like talks so fondly about this donkey. Then they had to leave her behind.
Oh gosh.
They would put it in the car, take it to the beach swimming. They would feed it cigarettes.
It was like a dog.
Right. It was like a dog. You could hear when my dad was coming home. So after 3 years, the Czech government said you have to come home. And my mom was so thrilled not to be living under observation and the communists and looking over her shoulder and worrying about what you could say and being having freedom. So they decided to flee. They thought about going to the Ivory Coast because they just learned how to speak French to be in Tunisia, and they wound up coming here because my dad had a med school classmate in Washington State. But they literally met in the cloak of darkness at the American ambassador's house because they didn't want to get caught going to the embassy and being seen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So all this was done in secret, and they fled here with nothing. And my dad didn't want to do his fellowship over again. He didn't know the language. So he was a little bit hesitant, so he wound up working for A.H. Robbins all the way until the company went under. So that's kind of our saga, how they wound up in Richmond. And
well, it's a family of doctors, and then you ended up marrying a doctor.
Yeah, so my brother's a doctor, so I don't know much else.
Well, you know what? It goes to show you everybody has different gifts and talents, because I could never be an anesthesiologist or a doctor. I just don't have the stomach for that. And but we can appreciate each other being able to do the different gifts and talents that we have that are so unusual, but being able to still have that same vision and goal to be able to help others. So I love that being able to collaborate with other people. So what is in store for you with Dr. United States of America? Is this a reign for the rest of 2021? And what do you have planned as far as like utilizing your platform to be able to help make a difference out there?
Well, first of all, I'd like to see this pandemic just start fizzling out. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
The numbers are looking really good. I know I just, I like to post facts on my social media, and just that everything's falling steadily. We're slowing down a little bit in the number of cases that we're slowing down, but it's looking great. We're vaccinating 2 million people a day, which is incredible. We've got vaccines that are just awesome. So what I would like to do is start making more appearances and being able to do all the fun pageant girl stuff that I missed out on.
Yeah.
Because I'm just soaking it up. I really am enjoying this. So yeah, I would like to see all of us be healthy and happy. And I know a lot of people are struggling not being able to be with grandparents and that type of stuff. So and all the businesses that need people back having high tea and eating and shopping.
Being able to go out.
So that's what I want to see. I want to see all that good stuff happen, and we are on the right track. We're not there yet, but we are on the right track.
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue pushing and educating people to get vaccinated, because I've always said this is the only way out.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to stretch this out for 2 years. All my predictions have been right, but I thought we would be 2 years, and I thought that we would not have a vaccine in less than a year. That just has blown my mind. So yay to nerds, yay to science, yay to people going into STEM fields.
Yeah.
So
well, it's important for everybody to still stay safe and make sure that you're washing your hands. It's the thing that people should have already been doing to begin with.
That's kind of
but
gross.
Make sure that you're staying safe. Right now, obviously when you're eating or drinking somewhere, you're able to have your masks off, but it's still important, I think, for people to wear their masks, as frustrating as they are. I'm not quite sure how I feel about Texas removing all of those restrictions so soon with everyone. But just, be wise. It's definitely important for us to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And if you don't feel well, to stay home so that you're not around anyone. And that would be the same thing if you had the flu or a cold. You just don't want to, you don't want to transfer anything. But I'm so excited that people were able to hear a little bit about, what you're doing and what you've been doing with Dr. United States. How can people find you if they want to follow you on social media?
So my public pageant page on Facebook is Dr. United States of America. And my Instagram is Dr. written out, model mom, because I was just, like a manager for my daughters.
Yeah.
But now, hey, I'm getting into it too.
You are. I love it. And you know what? It just goes to show beauty has no limits, of all ages, all sizes. Definitely get out there. And beauty is all in how you feel about yourself, to know your worth and you don't have to look a certain way. It's all about making sure that you feel beautiful on the inside so that you can shine from the inside out.
Definitely.
So I'm excited to be able to have Michelle here. Make sure you follow her and stay tuned for more interviews on 106.1 for the Heather Marie Speaks talk show. And a huge shout out again, one more time, for your husband's practice.
Yes, I feel better now in my 40s than I did in my 30s.
Yeah.
So Richmond Surgical Arts,
Richmond
Dr.
Surgical Arts.
Gregory Lynam. He's just a really nice guy too.
Yeah.
So I'm his biggest fan.
That's great.
He's my Prince Charming.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having tea with me today.
Yes, thank
Cheers
you. It's delicious.
to yes. Come visit Queen Bee and Company here in downtown Richmond. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. You guys stay safe. Have a great day. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely.